I found it in the glove compartment, a crumpled, used condom, tucked between receipts and old napkins. My hands shook before I even touched it. I froze, staring at it like it was alive, like it had just whispered the truth I'd been too blind to see. I didn't hear her car pull up. The low hum of the engine faded, replaced by the soft click of the front door opening. She was home. She always came home with that same lightness in her step, that perfume floating ahead of her like a halo. But tonight it felt different, heavy, wrong. I left it there. Not because I didn't want to scream, not because I didn't want to confront her immediately. I left it there because I needed something, evidence. Proof that the fleeting gut feeling I'd tried to ignore, the small pangs of doubt when she stayed late, when she smiled at her phone in the kitchen and tucked it quickly in her pocket, proof that it wasn't my imagination. I went inside pretending normalcy. I cooked dinner like we always did. The stove clicked, a soft, familiar rhythm. I chopped vegetables mechanically, my mind replaying the moment I had found the condom. My chest ached with every beat. She walked in humming, brushing wet hair from her face. "Hey, dinner smells good," she said. Her voice, warm, casual, slapped me with its normalcy. I nodded, forcing a smile that felt more like a mask than anything else. We sat at the table, the hum of the fridge, the faint tick of the wall clock, the occasional drip from the faucet. Everything seemed normal, but I couldn't stop glancing at her. The way she laughed, the way she pushed her hair behind her ear, it all felt like a performance I was watching through glass. "Everything okay?" she asked. Her eyes narrowed slightly, curious. I nodded. Yeah, everything's fine." I lied. Of course I lied. I didn't know how to tell her I'd discovered her betrayal. The words would burn in my mouth. I wanted to ask, scream, demand, but I also wanted to savor it. The moment I realized that someone I had trusted with my life could look me in the eyes and lie so easily. After dinner, she went to the living room to scroll through her phone. I followed her silent, carrying the weight of the evidence in my mind. I watched her laugh at a text, a small, private smile that should have been reserved for me. My throat tightened. I wanted to run. I wanted to call a friend, anyone, and scream until my voice broke. But I didn't. I stayed, watching her, feeling my chest hollow with disbelief. How had we gotten here? How had love become this? The first cracks had appeared months ago. The dinners she'd claimed were late work nights. The sudden weekend plans she forgot to mention. The way she seemed distant, like a shadow passing through the house rather than part of it. I had ignored them. I told myself I was overreacting, that she was just tired, that marriage was always like this, boring stretches of routine punctuated by moments of connection. But now, staring at the condom in my mind, at the truth staring me in the face, there was no denying it. She had betrayed me, and not just emotionally, not just in small ways, but physically, entirely. I walked outside, needing the night air, the chill, the smell of damp grass and asphalt after rain. The street was quiet, houses asleep, streetlights casting a dull glow over the wet pavement. I leaned against the car, hands in my pockets, letting the cold seep into my skin. My body trembled, but not from the cold. I thought about confronting her, about holding it in my hand and asking her to explain, but I didn't. I wanted to plan to make her feel the weight of this moment, not just the slap of discovery, but the quiet, simmering pain of realization. I remembered the first time we met, outside that little cafe on Maple Avenue. She had laughed at my terrible joke, eyes sparkling, hair catching the sunlight like fire. I had fallen instantly. I remembered our first apartment, peeling paint, leaky faucets, and the way she had insisted on painting it together anyway. Love had felt easy then, real, tangible. Now it felt like a lie. I heard her moving inside, the soft shuffle of her slippers on the floor. I went back in, trying to compose myself. She was sitting on the couch, her phone in hand, oblivious to the storm building beside her. "Can we talk?" I asked quietly. My voice sounded foreign even to me. "About what?" she replied, smiling unaware. I swallowed. I wanted to say everything, but I didn't, not yet. I wanted her to feel it. The cold, silent tension that had built over months now crystallized in a single moment. Instead, I nodded. Nothing. "Just tired." She leaned back, curling her legs under her. "Okay, if you say so." We sat in silence, me trying not to explode, her unaware. Every tick of the clock, every faint hum of the refrigerator, felt like it was counting down the last moments of our shared illusion. Later, when she went to bed, I stayed up. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't stop thinking about what I had found, about the smell of her perfume lingering in the car, about the way she had smiled at someone else while I thought we were building a life together. I imagined confronting her, not yelling, not crying, just laying the truth out in front of her and watching her try to twist it, to explain it away. I imagined her surprise, her fear, the sudden clarity in her eyes that I knew the truth. And I felt a flicker of satisfaction, but it wasn't enough, not yet, because I knew this, discovering it was just the beginning of something that would change us forever. something I couldn't unsee, couldn't undo. And I realized quietly, painfully, that the person I had loved, the person I had trusted with everything, was gone. I left her a note that night, short, sharp, impossible to ignore, not cruel, just precise. We need to talk tomorrow. 7 p.m., don't be late. I placed it on the kitchen counter, under the same light where we had shared so many ordinary moments, moments that now felt hollow. And then I went to bed, staring at the ceiling, heart hammering, mind racing. I didn't know what I would say when she came home. I didn't know if I could forgive her. I didn't even know if I wanted to. All I knew was that nothing would ever be the same, because tomorrow she would see that I knew. And for the first time in months, I felt the tremor of fear, not from her leaving me, but from what I was about to do next. The night dragged on. The streetlights outside flickered like distant, cold stars. And in the quiet of our home, I realized something terrifying. I was no longer the man who could pretend everything was fine. I was the man who had found the truth. And she had no idea how ready I was. The next morning, our house felt smaller. Every room seemed heavier, weighed down by the silence that hung like smoke. I walked through it slowly, tracing my fingers along doorframes, countertops, as if trying to remember how it had felt before the truth arrived. She hadn't touched the note, not yet. I could hear her moving in the bedroom, quiet shuffles, the soft sighs of someone trying to pretend the night hadn't ended in confession before it even began. I didn't go in, not yet. I stayed in the kitchen, sipping cold coffee, staring at the window. The street outside glistened with overnight rain. Cars passed occasionally, their headlights cutting through puddles like blades. Life was moving as if nothing had changed, but I knew better. Everything had changed. By mid-morning, she emerged, hair damp from the shower, a towel wrapped loosely around her. She looked fragile, a little off balance. Not the composed, smiling woman I had woken up to countless times, but there was no panic, no guilt in her eyes, just unease. "Morning," she said softly, voice careful. I nodded. "Morning." The tension was unbearable. I wanted to speak, to demand, to shout, but I restrained myself. There was a rhythm to this moment, and I knew patience would hit harder than anger. I noticed her phone buzzing. She ignored it, or maybe she didn't see it. Or maybe she was hoping I wouldn't. I didn't ask. Instead, I let her walk past me into the living room. She flopped onto the couch, curling up with a blanket, scrolling silently. The screen reflected faint light on her face. I could see glimpses, an occasional smile, a small smirk. My stomach turned. She was happy, or at least pretending. That's when I first started seeing him indirectly. A text notification popped up, a name I didn't recognize. A message that disappeared before I could read it fully. A subtle hint, a shadow of another presence in our life. I noticed the smell too, his cologne, faint but lingering on her jacket draped over the chair. A smell that didn't belong, a smell that whispered secrets in the corners of our home. I tried to focus on work, but my mind kept drifting. Emails blurred, files went unsaved. I was awake in a way that was painful, every thought circling back to her, to him, to the betrayal I had discovered. Days passed like this, a quiet war. We moved around the house in parallel lines, avoiding each other's gaze, pretending routines were normal. But everything was cracked. The dinner table felt like a courtroom. The kitchen, a witness. Even the walls seemed to know. I started noticing the little things, her perfume on the living room couch, the way her phone never left her hand, the subtle tension in her posture whenever she knew I was nearby. It wasn't just physical, it was psychological. He was everywhere in her behavior. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I wanted to see how far this would go. One evening, I found another clue. A small photo slipped under the edge of the couch cushion. Just a glimpse of him, smiling, hand in hers, caught in a moment I wasn't supposed to witness. The paper felt slick in my fingers, like it had absorbed every lie she had told me. I put it aside, didn't react, sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the ceiling, letting the quiet suffocate me. I realized then that grief wasn't just sadness, it was awareness. It was understanding that the person you loved could choose someone else without looking back, and it hurt more than any argument, more than any fight could. At night, I walked the neighborhood, streetlights reflected in puddles. I passed houses where families laughed inside, lights glowing warmly in windows. I felt nothing, nothing except the echo of what had been mine, what had been us. I started keeping a log not of her actions, but of mine, thoughts, feelings, plans. Quiet, meticulous, like a scientist observing an experiment that had gone horribly wrong. I wanted to understand myself. I wanted to know whether I could forgive, whether I could even survive this without losing who I was. Then came the turning point. It was a Saturday afternoon. I was at the grocery store, filling a cart with the mechanical precision of someone trying to convince themselves life was normal. I saw him, or at least someone who could only be him, standing across the aisle talking to a friend, laughing. No subtlety, no hiding. He was real. He existed in the same world as me, smiling, breathing, touching the same air. Something inside me snapped. Not anger, not rage, a cold, precise clarity. I realized I didn't need to watch her, to chase her, to beg. I had something else in mind, something she would never forget. When I returned home, the house was quiet. She was lying on the couch, phone in hand, pretending to scroll but really waiting for me to break, waiting for the confrontation she thought I'd never have the strength to initiate. I sat down across from her. No words, just presence, silence. She noticed. A flicker of tension crossed her face. Finally, I spoke, low, steady. I saw him today. Her hand froze on the phone, eyes wide. What do you mean? I saw him, I repeated, in the store, smiling, alive, breathing like nothing happened. She swallowed hard, didn't look away, didn't lie, just sat there, quiet. And in that silence, I realized something terrifying and exhilarating. I had the power now, the power to control the narrative, the timing, the revelation, to decide when she felt the weight of what she had done. That night, I prepared. Nothing dramatic, nothing cinematic in the movies, just details, observations, small, calculated steps, a note here, a call there, a subtle placement of evidence she would stumble upon, everything deliberate. Everything meant to make her understand, not just logically, but emotionally. Because I knew this, she had broken us, and it was my turn to show her that some consequences weren't immediate, some lessons had to simmer. I went to bed later, exhausted but oddly calm. I imagined her reading the first message, discovering the first piece of evidence, feeling that first prick of fear, and I smiled quietly, not with joy, not with malice, but with satisfaction, the satisfaction of a man who had realized he was not powerless. And as I lay there, staring at the ceiling, I whispered to myself, she's going to remember me, every choice she made, every lie, every touch that wasn't mine, and she won't forget it, not ever. She came back that evening. I heard the tires crunch against the gravel driveway before I saw her. The house smelled faintly of rain, of damp earth, and the faint residue of her perfume lingering in the hall. I stayed in the kitchen, pretending to organize the countertop, even though my hands shook. The door opened. She stepped inside. Her jacket clung to her shoulders, wet from the drizzle. Her hair was damp, sticking slightly to her neck. She looked smaller somehow, fragile, as if the weight of the last few weeks had bent her in half. We need to talk, she said softly. Her voice trembled, not the usual confident, playful tone. Not the one that had smiled at someone else without guilt. This one was tentative, scared, real. I nodded, placing the knife I'd been holding down gently on the counter. We already do. Sit. She hesitated. Took off her shoes slowly, as though every movement was deliberate, measured. Her eyes didn't meet mine. Finally, she sat on the couch, hands in her lap. She started, but stopped. A shiver passed through her shoulders. I'm sorry. I know that doesn't mean anything right now. I held up a hand. Let me speak first. My voice was calm, steady, and I could see the surprise flicker across her face. I saw everything. I found the evidence. I know about hymns. She froze, her hand twitched slightly, brushing the hem of her jacket. You what? I found it, I said simply, and I kept it, not because I wanted to yell or scream. Not because I wanted to confront you immediately. I wanted to understand, to feel how it would hurt, and now I do. Her eyes glistened with unshed tears. She tried to look away, but I could see every flicker of emotion in the dim kitchen light. The way her hands gripped the edge of the couch, the way her lips pressed together. I didn't mean to, I didn't, she whispered. Her voice cracked. She sounded younger, vulnerable in a way I hadn't seen in years. Didn't mean to, I repeated, letting the weight of it hang in the air. You didn't mean to betray the person who loved you, the person who trusted you. She looked down, silence, then softly, almost to herself, I made a mistake. A terrible mistake. I felt a surge, sharp and electric, but I didn't move, didn't yell, didn't show the anger that wanted to claw its way out. Instead, I stayed calm, let her feel it. Let her see that the man she had underestimated could stand still while the storm broke around him. I want to understand, I said finally, my voice low, careful, not to forgive, not to pretend it didn't happen. But I need to hear it from you. Why? She inhaled sharply. It's complicated. I felt lonely. I thought maybe, I don't know, he made me feel alive, something I hadn't felt with us in months. I never wanted to hurt you. I never thought it would go this far. I stopped her with a hand, gently but firmly. You didn't just hurt me. You shattered what we had, and I don't know if it can be fixed. Maybe it can't. And you need to know that. Her eyes filled with tears, spilling down her cheeks despite her attempts to hold them back. She reached for me, and I didn't pull away, but I didn't meet her halfway either. I let her hand hover there, uncertain, before falling to her lap again. I don't know what to do, she whispered. I can't sleep. I can't think. I can't stop imagining what I've done to you. I know, I said simply. My tone was quiet, almost kind, but inside it was precise, calculated. This was the moment she would remember, the moment she realized that betrayal didn't end with a confession, that consequences were patient, that some wounds couldn't be smoothed over with tears or words. She leaned forward, voice trembling. Can we try? Can we fix this? I looked at her, really looked. The rain outside tapped softly against the window, a muted percussion that echoed the rhythm of my thoughts. I saw regret in her eyes. I saw guilt. I saw fear. But I also saw the same person who had chosen someone else over me, over us. You can stay, I said finally, my voice steady. But just for tonight, that's all I can offer right now. Her shoulders sagged with relief. She exhaled, closing her eyes briefly, as if releasing the weight of her own mistakes. Thank you, she whispered. I didn't respond. I walked past her into the kitchen, preparing tea. The steam rose in soft curls, filling the space with warmth, contrast to the cold tension still lingering between us. I placed the mugs on the table. She picked hers up, hands still trembling. We drank in silence. Each sip was heavy, each swallow a reminder of what had been broken. Finally, she spoke, voice low. I don't deserve this. I don't deserve you. You're right, I said, you don't. But tonight, you're here, that's enough. And in that moment, I realized something crucial. Love and betrayal could coexist in the same space at the same time. One didn't cancel the other. One didn't erase the pain or the longing or the quiet understanding that what we had was gone, altered irrevocably. She looked at me, eyes glossy, searching, desperate for reassurance I couldn't give, and I understood. She needed closure, she needed forgiveness, but not yet, not fully. She had to live with this tension, this quiet, persistent reminder of what she had done. The night stretched long and silent. Outside, the streetlights glimmered in puddles. The house smelled faintly of rain and tea and regret, and I knew that tomorrow, when morning came, everything would change again, because this, tonight, was temporary. A pause, a fragile, brittle piece. I didn't know if she would stay. I didn't know if I wanted her to, but I did know this. She had returned, and the reckoning had only just begun. Morning came slowly. The sun crept through the blinds, casting pale stripes across the living room floor. She was still asleep on the couch, curled under the blanket I had draped over her the night before. Her breathing was soft, uneven, as if she were carrying the weight of guilt in every inhale. I didn't wake her, not yet. I stood in the kitchen, staring at the counter, hands resting on the cold surface. I thought about the note I had left days ago, the evidence tucked away, and the carefully orchestrated moments that had led to this quiet confrontation. It wasn't about cruelty, not exactly. It was about clarity, about showing her that actions have consequences, that betrayal lingers in ways you can't erase. I moved through the apartment, straightening small things. A stack of magazines, a pillow turned just so, the half-empty coffee mug from last night. Every movement was deliberate, methodical. There was something cleansing in it, control restored to a space that had been shattered. When she woke, her eyes were red, hair messy, skin pale. She looked at me hesitant, as though unsure if I was still angry or if I had finally forgiven her. I need to leave, she whispered. I nodded silently. You can pack. Take whatever you need. Her hands trembled as she gathered her things. Each movement was slow, deliberate, a silent acknowledgement of the chaos she had caused. She glanced at me once fleetingly, searching for some sign that I would stop her, that I would beg her to stay. But I couldn't, not anymore. When she opened the car door, the seat smelled faintly of rain and leather. And then I placed the nasty surprise where she couldn't miss it, a subtle but undeniable mark of her choices. A single small piece of evidence left in plain view. Nothing violent, nothing cruel, just inevitable. A quiet punctuation to the storm she had begun. Her eyes widened, she froze, and in that moment I didn't need to say a word. She understood. The look on her face wasn't anger, it was realization. Shame, guilt, the sudden clarity of what she had lost and what she had forced me to endure. I closed the door behind her quietly. The car drove off, tires splashing puddles in the driveway. I watched it go, a strange mix of relief and emptiness settling over me. The house was silent, too silent. The absence of her laughter, her voice, the small sounds of daily life we had shared, it pressed against me. I walked through the room slowly, absorbing the emptiness, the echo of memories that no longer belonged to us. I sat on the couch where she had slept, letting the quiet wrap around me. I thought about all the mornings we had shared, coffee, newspapers, sunlight spilling across the floor. I thought about the moments of tenderness, of laughter, of love. And I realized that even though it was over, even though she had betrayed me, those moments still existed. They weren't erased. They were just altered. I made myself a cup of coffee, holding it in both hands as the steam rose into my face. The bitter smell filled my senses, and I smiled faintly, not because I was happy, but because I understood something essential. Closure wasn't about revenge, it wasn't about anger. It was about recognition. About accepting what had happened, learning from it, and letting go. I walked to the window and looked outside. The street was quiet. The morning sun reflected off wet asphalt. A neighbor's dog barked in the distance. Life moved forward. And I felt myself moving with it, slowly, steadily. There was a sense of peace in knowing that I had acted with integrity, that I had confronted betrayal without letting it break me completely. She had left, but she had also learned something essential about consequences, about honesty, about the fragility of trust. And I had learned too. I thought about forgiveness, not for her, not yet, but for myself. Forgiveness that allowed me to release the anger, the pain, the endless what-ifs that had haunted me. I didn't need to reconcile. I didn't need to pretend the past could be undone. I just needed to exist fully in the aftermath. Hours later, the house was still quiet. I walked to the bedroom, sat on the edge of the bed, and ran my hands over the sheets. The familiar warmth, the smell of our life together, it was gone, replaced by the scent of solitude. And I realized something I hadn't allowed myself to before. Love doesn't always end with togetherness. Sometimes it ends with understanding. I stepped outside, feeling the crisp air on my face. The neighborhood was waking up. Cars passed slowly, children's laughter echoed faintly from a distant yard. I took a deep breath, letting the calm wash over me. And in that quiet suburban morning, I let her go, truly, not with anger, not with malice, but with a recognition of what had been and what had changed forever. Because some people leave twice, once in the flesh and once in the heart. She had left with him, and she had left again when I finally let her go, and I finally could breathe. Finally let her go, and I finally could breathe.